I mean, everybody's using this word manifested. Oh, we manifested. Oh, so strong. But we could feel the beat, dude. Yeah. Oh, dude, we could feel that. Almightyportal.com. Dude, hey, dude, I finally ported over that domain. They all hold the wall. Hold the door, yo. Dude, Hodor, man. Dude, bro, eggs aren't getting out to market. Nobody's getting chicken. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Welcome to episode 1 of Film the World podcast. I am excited to be here with you folks. We had another excellent day. I hope you did as well. I have been kind of trying to figure out where we're going to start this season. You know what I mean? Like, I was interested in our progression, right? And there's one thing that I want to make sure that we do. I want to make sure I'm doing right by y'all. And the only way I can do that is if we take our time with this. And there's a certain method that I've been following for the last, couple years here. And it has done a great job. All right. And that is language. Okay. It really kind of goes back to what is consistent and a known bias attribute. Maybe that's where we start. What is a known bias attribute? And this is going to take you to dissolve this definition for yourself. Now, this is going to be an easier process if we can align our definitions. This gets even easier if we use historical references and be like, hey, we kind of align with that. Okay, that's great. All right. So a known bias attribute is something in public domain that could be in any medium, that could be in a audio file, whatever it is, any kind of medium, and it's in public discourse, okay? So this is a known bias attribute for me, okay? Now, why do I value that? Because if it's in public discussion, it technically exists. And this is where I get even more into it, but a known bias attribute is something that's being readily used in a locality that you can reference in a historical nature, and you can apply it to any one particular category, okay? And then this will help go back to the same ideas that you'd previously had. And in language, we have known bias attributes in the form of words, right? And then what we do is we put the words together and then they become something. But everybody's using this word manifested. Oh, we manifested. Oh, so strong, isn't it? Oh, yeah. Well, we manifested a sentence putting these words together in a string, in a cohesive manner, and then we delivered, right? We delivered, hopefully, a cohesive message in a targeted language, which is a different type of attribute, okay? So, just starting off, it's good to know what a known bias attribute is for these languages, okay? Now, it gets interesting when we look at history. So we saw that, history, we used to write things down, right? And then, we used to, have formal stories. We'd sit around, campfire, tell stories. And it was it's deep, dude. Yeah. And I respect that. And when we go back to our roots, maybe summer camping, we kind of fall back into that, right? And it's this thing that we hold on to, right? And that's how we communicate and share language. And then these stories live on through us. So, when we remember our ancestors and, all of these cool stories that we've got, right? We take these, little building blocks that we have and we give them value in stories, and and they can become sometimes more than they are or whatever, and hopefully they are, because I think these ideas are evolving. They're constantly growing, right? We're making, and then as, we develop our communities, we get stronger, more in tune with our roots. Okay? So in history, we had this, traditional spreading of language, and then we had books and all this, and songs, resonate, they carry more value, and that tone, that carries on, and people remember the tone, and then they can mimic the tone, maybe not the words, but they carry the tone and maybe the overall meaning. And then this is maybe how it, we don't have that. We got the language barrier. We don't know what exactly it means, but we could feel the beat, dude. Yeah. Oh, dude, we could feel that. It's just feeling it, right? And that is language of the human condition, right? Okay, sweet. Okay, so while going and traversing a lot of these topics, because dude, I'm chomping at the absolute bit to get into UAP and this money, thing. But again, safety belts, okay? I have concern and I value my own sake, okay? So I'm just sharing my process that I've used to go and do deep type analytics on any one particular category. Ones that interest me have all, as you can see on this channel, have always been kind of UAP, strange in nature, this concept of conspiracy theory. It gets really confusing quick, and that's why I have to keep going back to this concept of language. And that's why I think it's just important just kind of start there. So, in my little teaser thing I put on almightyportal.com, dude, I finally ported over that domain. So, shout out. I am going to have the blog on there. You'll be easily able to reference blog posts referencing, this content. But then, on the different socials that we're going to, me, myself, and I are going to engage with here. So this is going to get super interesting. But again, I wanted to just start with the concept of language, okay? And if we did this from the concept I was talking about, a brick in the wall, and we just kind of all looked at ourselves as bricks. I don't know if you've seen bricks. I've got bricks on the side of my house, whatever. Dude, none of them look the same, okay? But all together, they form this wall. It's super special because it's my wall. And then makes another wall. Maybe it's your wall. And then they're dude, we've got all these walls, and they're all made up of different bricks, and it's freaking awesome, okay? So they're all a little bit different, but they all hold the wall, hold the door, yo, dude, Hodor, man, dude, yeah. Anyway, so as we go and traverse this, I wanted to kind of start here, because we can see, I know without even, me even getting too deep into history, which there's rich history in this, that language kind of was malleable, but mostly was fairly consistent. It needed to be consistent because, like, if your language was changing as you were going from village to village, bro, eggs aren't getting out to market. Nobody's getting chicken. You know what I mean? That's what happens. And so language needed to be consistent and coherent. Okay? So we developed these like rules for like what it means to be like using a language, because it's a technology. Okay? Do not get that wrong. That is absolutely a different form of technology. You know, we've got written technology. We have vocal technology. You know, we have singing, you know, which is much easier because you can get the tones. You know, it's a lot easier to memorize tones. Sometimes people see those in the forms of color, okay? So, anyway, okay, you can see where this is going, okay? So we've got little building blocks, all these little bricks, all these different perspectives start coming to the mix, okay? And then in 1961, okay, we made a pivotal change, okay? There was an absolute departure from what we called historical, like, rules in the form of language, all right? And that got super interesting to everybody, right? So we had this Merriam-Webster, its family, putting out books, okay? And they had the first edition. They had all these rules of how to appropriately use language. Because, you know, as we know, just in public discourse, out here in the ether, if you will, people are making up slang to avoid, you know, suspicion for certain whatevers. And like, it's important to take all these things into consideration because this changed how language, you know, was adopted and evolved, right? Because people are trying to like maybe shelter what they're talking about. So we're going to manipulate, you know, our dialogue, right? Maybe we're going to say something is what it typically hadn't been used for, you know? And previously in, you know, edition 1 and in edition 2, words in the form of ain't, for example, were seen as improper English. And it was specified, you know, verbatim. Do not use English in this form. And then, you know, in Webster's third, instead of more or less having like instructions, it more or less just started collecting definitions of common words. That made all words quite malleable. So after 1961, you know, the English language drastically changed, okay? So, you know, people, you know, maybe were using the word ain't, you know, prior to 1961, and we're like, you know, we are absolutely, you know, just getting trolled by all these bigwigs here because, you know, in their definition, you know, in their, you know, the dictionary, it's calling us out. It's calling us plebs in the chat, right? For using ain't, right? It's just improper English. Doesn't make sense. Great. Okay. Well, they got their victory, okay, in 1961. However, they took down the English language, possibly all language, because this isn't just limited to English, okay? This was all language, okay? So not only did you have like departures of like words like color, for example, you know, you had color, C-O-L-O-R, right? Like color, right? What? No. Traditional color COLOUR. That's proper English. And then these things were eroded, okay? Now, we choose not to look at language like this, but this, again, this was not limited to English, okay? So once this started happening and the happenstance happened to be English, about English language experiment of the human condition, this started to ripple out to other localities, okay? And I can see how you can see, how I can see, how we can see that this created the ever malleable entity we know in the form of language, okay? So, now that we've got that covered, beautiful. All right, so now we've set a baseline, okay? Now we can take a look at these definitions and the erosion, okay? And not to say it's good or bad. It's just removing consistency, okay? Because there are dynamics in play to make things seem random, which they cannot be. So it's very interesting to see how this all plays out. However, I just wanted to start here for the day. And I think that this is a very interesting topic, okay? So let's just start here. And let's just know that language became clay once again, okay? After 1961, for Webster's third, where the language was absolutely manipulated. So I'm just going to say there that we can start here. We don't need to take any new definitions. We just need to understand that this was a pivotal moment, okay? We don't need to cite other he said, she says. We just know the publication date of Webster's third, and that's good enough. You don't have to say it was good. You don't have to say it was bad. We just know that it happened. And this happenstance brings us towards today. Okay. So let's take a deep breath. Hold it. Okay. That wasn't that beautiful. All right. I hope you learned something today, folks. I am going to be going pretty ham on this topic, okay? This is just the baseline. There's no need to make this wagon become a sled, okay? So we're just going to take our time. And we got breaks right now. Just going to plop her on down and enjoy this evening. And I'm going to bid you well. And you have a great day tomorrow. I'm going to try to make this a daily thing. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.